Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight is our Back to School special for Fairfax County Public Schools. Joining me are several members of the Fairfax County Public School Board and our new superintendent, Dr. Scott Brabrand. In this first segment, we are going to be talking with Ryan McElveen. Welcome, Ryan.
Catherine, it's a delight to be here with you as always.
So we go back to the beginning, all the way back to the beginning, which for you was 2011. When you decided to run, I read an interview you gave with the Rest and Patch and reached out to you and I said, Ryan McElveen, I want to support you for the school board. And part of that was the ideas that you brought, the perspective you brought, and you were a young man in your 20s. You weren't married, you had no children, but you were a product of the Fairfax County Public School System, and I was very impressed with what you had to say. So as a non-educator, tell us about the journey and how you came to decide to run for the school board.
Well, so Catherine, you're right that we've known each other now for 7 years, and it's been a wonderful 7 years. I would say it's been the best time of my life on the Fairfax County School Board. I think more than any other position, serving on a school board is the most valuable experience that anyone can have, because you are dealing with the most precious cargo anywhere on the earth, right, our children, and you're working to ensure that they have the best education and then the best future possible. So there's nothing more valuable than that, and it's truly been an honor. You know, being on the school board, a lot of the issues that we deal with really mirror the hot button issues in society. And a lot of that is because at the local level, you're hearing directly from constituents. There's really no airspace
nowhere to hide, right?
There's nowhere to hide. And I think that makes it very powerful, because we're getting all the issues as they percolate up. And you know, it's certainly been an experience. When I got onto the school board 7 years ago, I certainly never thought we would be dealing with some of the issues we are today. You know, that's society. Society moves on. I think it's a good thing. I think we've done fantastic work over the past 7 years. That doesn't mean things are perfect. We still have quite a ways to go.
And it's a huge investment of time too. You know, I think there's a lot of people who are like, the school board must not be like holding a state office or holding other kinds of offices, but actually it's ongoing. It's pretty much all year long. There are issues, there's reading, there's materials. You have to, when you show up to those school board meetings, there's a tremendous amount of preparation that goes in before you sit down there.
Catherine, you're right. Serving on the school board is a full-time job, and Fairfax, as you know, is the 10th largest district in the country. So our positions might be different than those in other jurisdictions, but I don't think so. I think it's an important job. People take it seriously. It's a full-time job that is paid at part-time wages. To be honest, I think we should be paid as much as supervisors. I think the work we do is just as important. And I think that also shows the respect for education, you know, that we do not value education and teachers at the same level as we do other services.
I think you're absolutely right about that. And again, you know, when you first ran for the school board, a lot of people looked at you and said, well, this is not what we had in mind, because you were not a teacher, you did not have a degree in education, you didn't have children in the public school system. But you made a very strong case about the kind of activist you were as a student in both Fairfax County and at the University of Virginia. And you really have brought that activism in a way that has connected with Fairfax County public school students. So let's face it, you know, your Twitter following is enormous. Students know who you are. Now, in other school systems, I cannot imagine that the rank and file students in high school know who the members of their school board are. Mm-hmm. But people know who you are.
That's right. And you know, people often bash the school board for lack of transparency, but I will tell you there's no more transparent organization than Fairfax County Public Schools. And you know, one of the first things that I did when I got on the school board was push for YouTube testimonies so that people could sit at home, send in testimonies, and that's something that, you know, we were one of the first school boards in the nation, that, or any board that did that. Now our meetings are all live streamed. So, you know, I will hit back as hard as possible on the criticism that, we are not transparent. And I think having a younger person on the board has helped bring in, the social media, the YouTube, and I think that's been good for the organization. I think I've certainly over the years seen my colleagues follow and get the social media bug like you and I have had for a much longer time. But it just shows that new perspectives are sometimes a good thing.
And do you think, because I know that some of the school board meetings, and there have been some really very contentious issues in the last several years, and students have been involved in that. Students have shown up to testify. Students have done YouTube videos to present testimony on issues that matter to them, particularly those in the LGBT community. I sit on the board of Equality Virginia, and we have watched closely what has happened with the Fairfax County public school systems, because not only are you the 10th largest in the nation, you are the largest in Virginia. And so we look at Fairfax County as a model for what we can expect as far as policies and other school jurisdictions around Virginia. But I have been impressed myself with students stepping up and actually showing up for some of these school board meetings. And do you think that social media and the kind of outreach that's been done, at least since you've been there, has been part of that?
Yeah, I absolutely think that students are far more involved than they ever have been in our school system, and I think that's great. You don't see that around the country. I think we're unique in that. We're also unique because we're so close to the nation's capital. So we do have those issues that are coming in, and I think as everyone will tell you, our populace is far more educated than many other areas in the country. And so we have heated discussions, but they are educated discussions. And I think that's what helps move our system forward.
And I think, too, that from what I have also seen at these meetings, students are respected as having a valid opinion and that they are, in fact, being heard. I have seen great respect shown to the students. And you actually have a student representative every year who's appointed, I guess, to the school board.
So we've had a student representative in Fairfax County for 47 years now. We were one of the first districts to do that. Our student doesn't vote on everything, but they do have a say in our debate, and I think it's critical to have that voice there.
Yes, I remember when Ben Press was your student representative. Ben's a great guy. But I do think that also gives students, they do feel like they have representation, and it is more welcoming to walk into a room where you can see a young person sitting there who has, a role to play in the school board. So going forward, hopefully this year there won't be quite as many headline-grabbing issues, because the work of the school board involves many things, including the budget. Right? That's something every year that is probably the biggest battle that the school board wages, is how do you manage with what you have? How do you avoid having to cut anything? And where do you find money for things like teacher salaries?
That's right, Catherine. And this past year we cut $47 million. And it's year after year, it really does start to make an impact. And I think our constituents are seeing that. The concerns we hear are not about the quality of the people in the classroom, but it's the quantity of people in the classroom, right? So class sizes are an issue. We had to bump up class sizes by half a child for this coming year. We had to raise the class size by the class size floor by one student. And so we continue to chip at the edges, and at some point things are going to cave in. And we are doing our best to prevent that from happening, but it's every year quite a slog.
Well, so I can't believe that school is opening in 2 weeks, because this is a first for Fairfax County too, at least for a long time. We had the King's Dominion law that always said school had to open after Labor Day. Now we are opening in 2 weeks on the 28th of August. Are all the teaching positions filled? Because I have seen things that say that we continue to have a problem with teacher hiring.
Catherine, that's correct. Our teacher positions are not all filled. I know we were working hard to do that before the start of school. Last year we started school with 200 positions unfilled. And so, that remains a critical issue for us. We just earlier today welcomed 2,000 of our new employees, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, wow, ready to go. But it remains an issue. And, when speaking with them, one thing I will tell them is that they need to advocate for public education, because when we push for things like an increased tax rate, a meals tax, things like that, it impacts them directly. 88% of our budget is compensation.
Right.
So when we're out there advocating for more funding, it's funding for our teachers and to lower those class sizes.
And we're competing with school systems around us, and I think, again, the meals tax was an unsuccessful battle that we waged. We certainly waged it here on Inside Scoop. The electorate, I don't think, really got their arms around what that was going to mean when Alexandria and Arlington have a different way of creating revenue to pay their school teachers, and we compete for the same pool of teachers. So, going forward, what do you see? Is there ever going to be another opportunity at a meals tax? Because we are limited in the way in which we can raise revenue.
I think the meals tax campaign will be back, and I think we'll have better leadership on all sides to get it done. And we need to have people that, like me, that have future generations coming through our system in the coming years realize what the impact is. We wouldn't have had to make any of those cuts we made this past year if we had that, and we could have put even more money towards teacher salaries. So, it remains to be seen.
So, it's an educational process, and here's the thing about any kind of advocacy you do. Sometimes you don't get it the first time, or the second time, or the third time. Ken Plum is the one who will tell you that sometimes you chip away at it and you chip away at it, but you must persist in order to get something done.
That's right, and the King's Dominion law is the perfect example of that. I mean, we continue to chip at it. We haven't gotten rid of the law, but we have gotten a waiver. Lucky enough, we've had plenty of snow days over the past few years, and we have that waiver through 2019-2020. But at that point, we're going to have this debate again. And I do think it is valuable for students to start earlier. We've had a shorter summer this year, but they will have more time before standardized tests in the classroom. They'll have more time to apply for colleges. And so I think it is a win-win. And most importantly, we get out in June, right?
Right, you get out in June.
Yeah.
And speaking of snow days, everybody knows that you are the person to watch for those snow day announcements. That has gotten to be sort of this cult following that you have, and I love to see it. I think we all love to see it. And that's just a niche you've carved out as a school board member that really connects you with the kids. And I think that's a wonderful relationship to have.
And I will tell you, that's the perfect example of technology catching up with public policy catching up with technology. Because the way we used to roll out our snow day announcements was from the
phone call or whatever.
The phone call, Channel 21 scroll. Yeah. Scroll. And so, our system has gotten much more responsive, not only in that area, but in other areas in terms of our communications.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Ryan. I can't thank you enough for coming on our show and helping all of us to understand your role on the school board. So please join us after the break when we are going to come back, and we will be talking to Pat Hynes, another member of the school board. So please join us after the break, and we'll be back to talk about our Back to School special for Fairfax County Public Schools.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try.
Only you.
Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches, don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire!
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water. At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site. That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff. You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow! Oh!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent!
Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. This is our Back to School special for Fairfax County Public Schools. Joining me in this segment is School Board Member Pat Hynes of the Hunter Mill District. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you, Catherine. It's good to be here.
So I remember your first run for the school board as well.
So do I.
That was a stellar year, wasn't it?
It was an exciting year, 2011. That's right, that I decided there was an opening in the school board from the Hunter Mill District. And the previous school board member had served for 16 years. So there was suddenly an opportunity. And I was in the classroom. Actually,
you were a teacher. You were a teacher.
Yeah, I was teaching 4th grade at Forest Edge Elementary in Reston. And I had taught before that also in Vienna. So I knew a lot of folks in the district. Hunter Mill is Vienna, Reston, a little bit of Herndon. So I knew a lot about the school system. I knew a lot about the people in the district. I'd been active in civic association and that sort of thing. And I thought, well, let's give it a try. You know, see if I can take what I know about the classroom to the boardroom and make a difference that way. Now, when I was elected, I had to quit my teaching job in the school system because you can't do both. So it's been 6 years of trying to keep my hand in as a teacher in other places, and the wonderful privilege of serving on the Fairfax County School Board.
Right, so you do bring an interesting mix. You have a very interesting background. So before you were a teacher, I believe you got a law degree.
I got a law degree a long time ago, yes. And that was kind of my first life. I did that for a few years in New York, but I will say it was not really my calling. So when my kids came along, I had the luxury of spending some time with them to figure out what I wanted to do next. And you know, when you're home with your kids, you end up doing what they're doing, right? And so I had always loved working with kids. My mother was a teacher, and so I found myself in schools all the time, and I started subbing, and then I thought, well, you know, I really enjoy this, so let's give it a shot. And you know, I was a career switcher. I had to go back and get my teaching license, and so you know, I really haven't looked back. In fact, this year I'm going to be working as a teacher in Arlington County Public Schools starting in a couple weeks. So
you keep your hand in, and I think that's kind of important. Again, you've got 12 members on the school board, so everybody brings their day job, their experience to the school board. Everybody has a different reason for coming to the school board, and actually you've got 12 members, but actually right now you've got 11 members.
Right.
Right, so you've got one opening.
Right, we had an interesting thing happen. Jeanette Huff, who was one of our at-large school board members, elected just a couple years ago, had to leave the country. Actually, her husband got an assignment overseas. And so she resigned back in June, and that meant that we have to have a special election to fill her spot. And this is a county-wide election on August 29th.
The day after school starts.
Yes.
And all the polling places are the same, which is the public schools. A lot of people's polling places are the public schools, and so people have got to figure out where to vote because school's not closed.
School's not closed.
School's not closed, and so this is. But people can vote in person. People can vote absentee. People can vote in other ways. But that is something we need to let people know. First of all, that there's a special election. Second of all, it is your regular polling place, but you'll be there with the school children.
That's true. So for parents and teachers, they'll already be there. Well, teachers aren't necessarily voting where they teach, but most of the parents are going to be dropping their kids off at the same school where they vote. So even though this run-up to the election is a hard time to get the word out to people about your campaign and your candidacy, the fact that we will be back at school this year in that last week of August, I think will help with the turnout. Because it's just so important. Elections matter. And elections really matter to schools. And obviously a school board election matters to the schools.
It really does. And so we don't want people to not be aware of that. And people bring, as we said, different experience to that role. And so, you know, this year, as Ryan and I talked about, hopefully not every issue will be headline grabbing the way it has been. So what are some of the things that you would really like to prioritize? What are some of the initiatives that you really hope to focus on this year?
Sure, thank you. I think it's interesting, the headline grabbing stuff. You know, one of the things when you get on the school board, you don't know what your opportunities are going to be, what your privilege is going to be when it comes to what comes at you sort of historically during your time on the board. And so I think when those things kind of come at us, your role is just to have focused and respectful leadership as much as you can. But yes, the things that I would like to see us move forward on. I mean, I first of all want to welcome everyone back to school and wish everyone, teachers, students, families, school system leaders, just a wonderful year. But some of the things that I'd like to see us make some progress on after 6 years on the board is, we have equity issues in the school system. We're a large school system. We have achievement gaps. We have some opportunity gaps. We're aware of them, and it's an important priority of the full board that we continue to work on those. I'd like to see us do a couple of things that we haven't done yet. One is to institute an equity dashboard. Now, what that is, other school systems have done it, and it's a page on the website where you go there, and we've got a dozen or so measures that we think are really important for student achievement, student opportunity, and services to students. And we disaggregate them, break them down by race, ethnicity, family income, home language, that sort of thing, and update them regularly so that the community has one place to go to see how are we doing when it comes to equity. Other school systems have done it. I think it's the way that we can keep our community engaged and helping us to get closer to our goal, which is an excellent education, challenging opportunities, meeting every single child's needs every day. So I think that's something we should try to get done this year. We also have had an opening for an assistant superintendent that would work on equity issues in the system. And that's been open for a while, and we have a new wonderful superintendent who will be putting his thumbprint on the management of the school system, which is totally appropriate, and he's going to take his time to do that. But I hope that one of the things that he does, Dr. Brabrand, is to fill that position or something like it with someone at that level in the school system who is responsible for looking out for equity, making sure that in every decision we make, we are thinking about an equitable provision of services and opportunities to kids. So that's one thing that I'd like us to make progress on.
That sounds like a big, hairy, audacious goal, and it would be beyond needing it because we have a very multinational, multicultural, and very disparate communities within the county.
We do, and it's also something that it's the work of the school system every single day in every single classroom. Every teacher is working on meeting needs. I believe there are things that we could do differently structurally that would help us. I think we have too many schools within schools. We have programs within our schools that are magnet type programs like the Advanced Academic Centers, and even the way we do language immersion in elementary school, create schools within schools. And to some degree, we have parallel school systems, and I think we need to break that down and have kids learn together better, more than we do. So that's one thing. The other goal that I have for this year for the school board is to make some sort of a policy statement or policy goal when it comes to renewable energy. Now, I want to say first, the Fairfax County Public Schools staff has done great work and has got us going in the right direction when it comes to our carbon footprint. We are now the #1 school system in the country when it comes to the number of buildings that are ENERGY STAR rated.
Wow.
Yeah, we beat Los Angeles, which has 3 times as many buildings, right? So we are definitely going in the right direction. We're thinking the right way, but we are still completely dependent on fossil fuels. And I look at our, acres and acres of sunny, flat rooftops. Our footprint is 4 times the size of the Pentagon. We have great opportunities out there, and I would like to see us begin to make better use of that. And I think the way I've seen other jurisdictions do it, they will set a policy goal. Like Arlington County, not the schools, but the county has a 2050 goal for renewables, right? And so we could do something like that as a school board, working with the superintendent and the facility staff to make sure that it's doable. But I'd like to see us make some noticeable progress on that. And then the other conversation we always have to have is how are we doing on revenue?
Right, like we were just saying, and there's only a limited number of ways the county can generate revenue in order to invest it in the schools.
Yeah, and so, it's been a roller coaster ride on that. My 6 years on the board, I feel like Last year, we actually made some progress, and we got a good investment in the school system to allow us to make some changes in our salary scale,
right,
to bring us closer to market, to keep some of our great teachers. But then this past year, once again, we were behind where we want to be and not able to do the things we want to do. And when I'm in the community now, I just ask, look, we're smart. We know that you get what you pay for.
Right.
We know that you fund what you care about. So let's keep having that conversation.
That's true, because the teachers in the classroom are probably the most critical element of a child's education, of the things that you can control in the classroom. There's a lot of things that children come into the schoolroom with that you can't. But investing in teachers, by paying them, we are competing with people around us, but elevating the professionalism of teachers. When you look at Scandinavian countries, which we laud as having the best return on their educational investments, that is one of the primary things. They have a high bar that teachers have to cross in order to be a teacher, but then they are paid and respected as doctors and lawyers are, in which we don't do that here.
Right. We expect the high professionalism. We expect the significant
investment in education. Right?
Yes, absolutely. And you have to keep it up. You have to continue to educate yourself, which teachers want to do anyway. But when you're living in an area where the median household income is over $100,000 a year, and your teachers are making beginning teachers roughly half that.
Right.
It's just, you just can't do the math as a family.
The math doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yeah. And so we are losing teachers to neighboring counties, and we're also, we're just, as we squeeze central office as well, that support network at central office is really important for what happens in the buildings. We have over 200 schools. Right. That requires, some folks in central office to be able to answer questions and provide curriculum and provide support. And just in since my time joining the county as a teacher, I remember back when I started, there was this thought that, oh, well, there are so many people in central office, and what do they do?
Right.
But
right. Like,
right,
I know exactly that conversation, because it happens every time. It's like, but why are there so many people?
Right.
If you owned a business, no one would be asking you why you needed all those people to operate your business.
Right.
But I find that schools suffer from the same thing that nonprofits do. You're not supposed to have any general administrative expenses, but that's not realistic.
No, and I've seen the change. You can only cut so much, and then there becomes kind of a very stressful tipping point that starts happening. I think we need to just continue to have that conversation with the community. We definitely want to be efficient and effective with the funding, and it's absolutely understandable that people say, well, don't cut the classroom, but there's a point where
something's got to give.
Right, and when we're $50 million short, there are only a couple of buckets that are big enough to handle that, and that's basically people, salaries, and the number of employees, which is, as Ryan was talking about, class size, and we cannot keep going after class size.
I know.
That is not okay. We have to keep appealing to the community. I know this community wants great schools and cares about our teachers. I think, got to keep telling the story,
I think that's true, and I think that's, again, why businesses move here. They want an educated workforce. We do educate the workforce here, and people want their children to go to good schools. And again, I would say that people are not looking at the property values of their home. Yeah. And I think that, people move to certain communities and they wait to get that house in that certain community because they want that certain school system.
Right, no doubt. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Pat. It has been a pleasure talking with you.
You too.
Please join us after this break. We're going to be talking with Dalia Palchik in the next segment. She is our school board member from the Providence district, and we will discuss further our hopes and expectations for this brand new school year here in our Fairfax County public school system. So join us after the break.
Guess what? I have some news for you.
There's free food right there, junk food. You see that truck?
Oh, jeez.
It's a 2 Michelin star chef. All for free, ladies and gentlemen. All for free.
Here we have a panzanella with summer vegetables and pesto. Enjoy. How we doing?
Fantastic. So what do you got going on underneath that plate there?
This food is really about to be thrown away.
Yeah.
Bro? Is there something wrong with this food? Where did you get it from?
From farmers markets. They put aside the ugly vegetables and the ugly fruits.
Carrot top, soft avocados. It was all food that was going to be discarded.
Even the drink you had is made from like a little bruised peach. Did it taste a little bruised?
Great. It's good.
The average person throws away 24 pounds of food a month.
That's a lot.
Isn't that a lot? Go visit savethefood.com for more information. Thank you. Junk food time!
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and joining me in this segment is Dalia Palchik, one of the newest members of the Fairfax County School Board representing Providence District. Welcome, Dalia.
Thank you, Catherine.
So I was there for the beginning of your race too. There's a theme here tonight. It's like I was there. So tell us a little bit. You are an educator, as a matter of fact, and you did go to the Fairfax County Public Schools, Thomas Jefferson High School?
I did Mantua, Frost, and Thomas Jefferson, TJ.
So you kind of were the same path as Ryan in that you were a product of our fantastic school system. And you went to University of Virginia?
Tufts University.
Tufts University. Okay, so he went to UVA, you went to Tufts.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about why you decided that you wanted to be on the school board.
Yeah, so I took a little bit roundabout growing up. After sixth grade teacher, loved her at Mantua. I said, I want to be a teacher. I wasn't sure what I wanted to teach. And then when I went to college, I fell in love with cultural anthropology and doing poverty work. I grew up in Fairfax being, an immigrant, learning English, and on the free and reduced meals program, which when I was growing up, we were a very, very small minority. Now, about a third of our kids are growing up in poverty. And so I went first into doing international poverty work and community development, microfinance, empowering women and families. And I loved it, but my favorite days were when my boss's kids came to the office and I took care of them. It's like, I'm in the wrong profession. So I worked my way into teaching. I love languages and culture, so I taught Spanish and French, taught about poverty at a K-8 school, which is really, I love K-8 students and teaching. And so I was doing that for several years while I lived in DC. And then I moved back to Fairfax to be close to my family and back home, bought a condo, and started to realize I love what I was doing, what I got to do as a teacher. And I said, wow, why aren't we doing all of this in our schools here in Fairfax County? And why is the school board not representative of our community yet? And why is there only one teacher, Pat Hynes? So I never ever thought I would do this. I was pretty shy growing up, but I love families, I love people, and finally I said, all right, it's about being a voice for the community. So I threw my hat in the ring and worked really hard, as you know, for 9 months.
You really did, but obviously your message resonated when you knocked on the doors because you do have a perspective that was missing, not just as a teacher, but the fact that you came as an immigrant, you learned English, you struggled economically, and so there are those students in our public school system, and somebody who's lived that experience brings a different perspective to those discussions, I would imagine.
Yeah, and right now where I live in my community, and I'm here in the Falls Church Pyramid down the street, a couple miles away, I see those kids every day. I assume we have at least 100 countries represented just where I live in my little association. And kids, in every grade level with families working really hard and trying to make ends meet so that they can be in the best public schools in the nation. Right. And so I think it's our duty to ensure that people who are making the sacrifice to have their kids here in Fairfax County continue to see the investment and the excellence and equity for all of our kids.
Yeah, and Pat did talk about equity, and so let's talk a little bit about the fact that people are here because they do want the better public school systems, but some of these families are working 2 and 3 jobs. And so now you've got to balance parents who work all the time and knowing that that students whose parents are more involved tend to have better outcomes. So what do you do?
Yeah, so it's actually one of my passions is figuring out community parent engagement. We actually have an excellent early literacy, family literacy program here in our county where we work with parents whose kids are not in the Head Start program, but not necessarily in full-time preschool anywhere because we don't have that yet for our public
Universal
schools.
Pre-K is a big thing, yes.
And so we have small programs where we work with not only the kids but the parents. You know, I remember growing up here for my mom, it wasn't just a language barrier, but it's, you know, culturally, you don't go in and question or advocate for your child. The principal says and you do, and you really value the principal and the educator's opinion. And I think part of it is helping our families realize, no, we really want and expect you to come and to advocate for your kid and to teach them how to do it. And we actually have some leadership programs as parents then go into middle school that I really hope we can grow. And beyond that, I think as Ryan was saying, I think, and I know that our superintendent is very dedicated to his work as well. He also speaks Spanish, which I love. Is how do we use technology in such a busy world to kind of help parents and be more engaged and say, you know, it's our job to be out in the community and out reaching out to our families, because in the end it makes our jobs so much more productive as well, and that we're able to reach kids and have the parents be engaged and informed as well.
Yeah, and it is a dialogue. And so when my kids were in the public school system starting in the mid-90s, the early mid-90s, email just came into being kind of in the later 90s, and you would get emails from the teacher, and that was kind of revolutionary, that you didn't actually have to show up in person or to make a phone call and wait, you know, for the phone call to be returned. Suddenly you had this communication tool, and so we forget that is pretty new, just being able to email. But now you also have digital technologies. Everybody's got a smartphone, and are we actually using those tools to their greatest advantage and trying to keep parents connected with what's happening with their children in the school?
Yeah, and like texting is huge within the Latino community and so many of our communities. Also, we have some schools and we have these great pockets of excellence and so many things we do, and one of them is an outreach. We have schools where, you know, as the school year is beginning or over the summer, principals or teachers will go out to the community, hold meetings, knock on doors, and talk to families. Because I think we sometimes forget also that in the digital world, an email kind of becomes overwhelming and feels so impersonal, and that taking that step to go out and reach out to people and help them realize, it's okay, I'm here for you, and it's not scary, you can come to school, I can come out and speak to you. It's the same work I did in international development. So really, it's just community development wherever you are.
You know, and that is true, and I think there are other programs. I did a show with Girls on the Run talking about how they're taking the Girls on the Run program, where it started in the schools, and they're actually taking it on Saturdays to where kids live who otherwise would not be able to participate in that program. And I'd like to see more of that kind of innovation that says, if kids can't stay before or after school because of transportation or if the expense is the issue, what can the schools help to facilitate as far as taking things out to the community?
Wonderful, and I love Girls on the Run. This is our biggest chapter here in Fairfax.
Absolutely.
I also think communities of faith. One of my goals this year is to really reach out to more of the communities of faith in the area and see what can we do as a whole community, because we're all in it together. There are kids, whether or not you personally have kids in school, this is our county and they're our future. And so really figuring out more and more ways that we can partner. I know Vine Street Church down the road has lots of family nights for kids and movie nights. So it really is about that, is remembering we're still a community, and it takes all of us to make the kids in the school successful.
Absolutely, and I think we forget that sometimes about, there's the school community and there's the larger community.
Right.
And one of my favorite things to talk about, which I'm not going to talk about tonight, is community schools, because we don't have any in Virginia.
I'd be happy to talk about them.
I tell you what, that is like, I talk to everybody and their brother about community schools because they have them elsewhere, but we don't have them in Virginia. And at some point, I would love to see a greater exploration in the county about whether the community school model is appropriate, especially for some of our Route 1 corridor schools and other places where those services and the coordination of services would...
Yeah, I'm totally on board. And I know our SCPS committee, our school and community partnership with the county, has looked at that. Just down the road, we have the Graham Road Community Center, which now has the early childhood, adult education, and a whole variety. And I would love to see places like that really become a center that can be more of a community school and providing services. Because we know, I mean, we have programs, but we know, providing more and more at the school really is so much more effective and creates that community.
It's just a
and
great
the communication.
point of entry, and it's a
It
trusted
really is.
point of entry, especially for families who are not sure how to navigate county resources or nonprofit resources or whatever. So I'm all about just the whole concept of communities being better integrated within the larger community, because I think there are people who want to help. I also work with Grand Involve, and Grand Involve is retired seniors in our Title I schools, and that's a 3-year-old program. I see that again is another wonderful starting point for how can people who don't have children in school be part of the solution for serving the children in school.
I totally agree. And I think, as Fairfax County developed, it was very much we wanted to make sure things were done right, and that we're safe, and that things are, proper channels. And I think that's really important. But I do think we need to find ways now to say, okay, well, we can't do it alone. Maybe we could before. But we really can't right now, and really do need support. And I also think as we look down the road and to look at ways that we do find avenues for funding, for ensuring that we're hiring and keeping the best staff, because it's in the end it's about the people and having the right people there. And so I do think there's a little bit of isolation in our school system that we need to find a way to address properly and in a safe manner, but to say, how can we get more people involved in a way that helps, and that helps them see it's about the kids, right? Sometimes we forget. We look at numbers, we look at a budget, we look at yes or no at the voting booth, and we forget really we're saying yes or no to kids. We're saying a few dollars more, a few dollars less to kids, and that's what we forget sometimes if we don't see it every single day.
That's true. So let's talk about some other innovative things. I was very excited about the bus pass program that started 2 years ago with Fairfax County giving free pass to the middle school and high school kids for the connector bus. And then Fairfax City followed suit with the Q bus. And so I know the numbers from the preliminary numbers I heard is that a lot of kids are taking advantage of that.
I think you read my mind. I wanted to talk about it because I love the bus
that program.
When I was teaching in DC is when we had the one DC pass where all students had access to the buses. And I remember in my school I took kids on field trip on the bus. Some of them had never been on a public bus, and it was like, oh my gosh. And I love the bus program, and I do think it's growing. I don't have the current numbers. Beyond that, as we talk about transportation, community involvement, I would love down the road for us to find a way, or soon, to say, well, we have parents who can't get to schools and school meetings.
That's exactly it.
And so we really do. I think it's such an effective way, and to look at, we really are at kind of a breaking point. We have the largest bus system in the nation for FCPS, larger than Greyhound, and we have a city and county bus system, and then WMATA system that are all kind of running simultaneously. So I do hope that we can start to look at ways to kind of consolidate and help ensure and increase public transportation, because beyond schools, it is one of the #1 ways to ensure increased equity in a community is access to transportation.
The before and after school programs where transportation was a problem, but also jobs, part-time jobs for kids who had no way to get from school there, that's been solved. The other thing that I think is a huge benefit, and this goes back to equity too, is that we are creating the next generation of public transportation users. I think there are kids in our elementary schools today who will never have a driver's license, will never want a driver's license, will never own a car. And I think that's wonderful for all of us, because it levels the playing field when you have good public transportation and people were raised using it.
I totally agree. The one thing that was keeping me from moving back to Fairfax was having to buy a car. So I'm totally on board. I think having access, I used to be able to say, okay, I can bike, I can take the bus, I can walk to there, I can take the metro. And I really do think, and we spend so much time in our cars these days, that it's the future.
I think it is the future, and so I'm glad to see that the school was part of that, and I love the fact that teaching kids to ride the public bus is now part of the educational program, or it's interconnected. I love the interconnectedness of it. Thank you so much, Dalia, for being here.
Thank you, Catherine. Such a pleasure.
Please join us after this break. We are going to be talking to Dr. Scott Brabrand, our new superintendent.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
We just finished dinner and it was time for homework. He hates homework. I know he's bright.
Why is it so hard for me?
He's
I'm
just
trying
gotta
as
try a
hard
little
as
harder.
I can.
1 in 5 children struggle with learning and attention issues. Go from misunderstanding to understood.org.
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the Creative Galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Each one of our journeys keeps us young.
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
We'll never get older. Each one
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Most party fouls? Not a big deal. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed. This is our Fairfax County Public School Back to School special. And joining me in this segment is Dr. Scott Brabrand, who is the new superintendent of schools for Fairfax County. But this is a homecoming for him because he was actually the principal at Fairfax High School when my son was there. So welcome back, Dr. Brabrand.
Well, thank you, Catherine. It's great to be back.
So we were talking about the path that people have taken to the school board, but you have an interesting story about the path you took to education.
Well, yes, I graduated from Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, and I thought I wanted to do something international. And I started working for Bell Atlantic, and I worked in a operator assistance office in Duke Street in Alexandria here in Northern Virginia. And Bell Atlantic was looking at buying telecommunications companies in Latin America. Well, they bid on 2, neither of them were occurring. And part of being at Bell Atlantic, they had an Adopt a Schools program with Fairfax County Public Schools. And my boss was a Desert Storm veteran. He had just gotten back and said, you need to serve your community. So one day a week, I started going to Oakton High School and helping out with ESOL students there. I speak Spanish, and I was able to help many of the students who were Spanish speakers. That 1 hour a day was more powerful for me, was more meaningful for me than anything else I was doing, even though it was a great company and a great experience. So I became a career switcher, and I went to the George Washington University and became part of the Fairfax Transition to Teaching program. I became an intern at Herndon High School. So 1 year as an intern, then a teacher, then an assistant principal at Herndon. Then I became an associate principal at Lake Braddock Secondary School, which was a middle and high school. And then principal at Fairfax High, where I got to have the honor of educating your son.
2005 to 2009.
Yeah, I was there 4 years, and then an assistant superintendent in Cluster 4, which is now Region 3, the West Potomac, Hayfield, and Mount Vernon Pyramids. And then I left to become a superintendent of schools in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is about 3 hours south. And it's great to be back in the Fairfax family. I loved it in Lynchburg, but this is about my life coming, professional life coming full circle. In a professional sense, I was born here. I was raised here, and I hope to retire here and finish my educational career in Fairfax County.
You know, I think one of the great stories here that I hope people don't miss is, and I work with a lot of young people who are in college or just got out of college, you know, and I tell a lot of young people that you probably aren't going to be a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, that whatever your degree is in, this is not necessarily the thing that you will do. And so the story that you tell, and that a lot of people have told, is that I started here, found the thing I have a passion for, and ended up here.
Right.
And that's a great lesson for students to understand.
Well, I had a passion for diplomacy and trying to connect people across various cultures and languages, and frankly, I didn't have to go around the world and become part of the State Department to do it. The world came here to Fairfax County Public Schools.
That is so true. The 10th largest school district in the country, and it is very international here.
Right. And honestly, to be a successful leader, I think today you've got to be able to have a skill set. You've got to have cultural competence. You've got to be able to understand different perspectives and points of view. And I think the superintendency in public education today, it's a requirement. So frankly, my degree was a great foundation. And it's really helped pave the way for some of the success I've had, and I hope it will help me as I move forward as a superintendent here in Fairfax.
I'm sure it will, and it really is about skills. It's about skills. It's about developing skills. What do you know how to do? And again, we are educating students for industries that don't exist, for jobs that don't have names. So when we are looking and trying to figure out the best way to educate that future workforce, what do we need to be thinking about?
Well, one thing it's very interesting to tell you that I shared at Leadership Conference just last week, and I shared with our new teachers, about 1,000 new teachers that we introduced at South County Secondary School who will serve all over Fairfax County today. We need to have a growth mindset. I showed a picture of 3 cats. The first is a cat that I drew in 15 minutes with no assistance. And I tell folks, I never grew up thinking about myself as an artist. I had a fixed mindset about drawing a cat. So I drew a cat. It's a little bit of a stick figure cat. Then I invited a teacher to come help me with one-hour lesson. The teacher brought tools, paper and pencil, but the teacher also brought a book. It was a book with a cat on the front, and in the pages were statements from students in his art class saying, Dr. Brabrand, you can do this. You can draw a better cat. And so after 1-hour session with him, I practiced and I presented a second cat. And most people would say the second cat's better than the first. Then I showed the teachers and our leadership, our school leadership last week, the third cat. The third cat was drawn by Leonardo da Vinci. It's a little bit better than my second cat. And my second cat's a little bit better than my first. But one of the important things we need to understand about teaching and learning, we need to have a growth mindset for our kids. Some kids in some things, they're already cat number 3. Right. They're really truly gifted in something. Some kids are cat number 2 in a particular area. In fact, all of us really in some areas are cat number 3, cat number 2, and yes, sometimes even cat number 1. We need to have a growth mindset that in education, in public education, kids come in at all different levels, and it's our job to get them to the next level, in this case, the next cat level.
Right.
And as adults, school leaders, our teachers, we have to have a growth mindset about ourselves. How I taught in year 1 isn't how I'm going to teach now in year 5 or year 10. How I taught in the past isn't how I'm going to teach here in the future. We've got kids that need to be 21st century ready. And we're in the middle of the 21st century now, well into it. So we've got to get them ready to have a growth mindset, that you're going to learn some skills and learn some knowledge now, but you've got to be ready for new skills and new knowledge and new experiences moving forward.
And they also bring something different in because they are digital natives.
Yes.
And I say this because I mentored a second grader at Daniel's Run this past year.
Ah, fantastic.
8 years old, and she always wanted to show me things on my phone. Like she couldn't spell very well, but she knew how to use Google to show me a picture of her brownie vest. She could find that on Google using my phone. So I finally just had to stop bringing my phone because that's what she wanted to do. But to me, that skill set kids are bringing in, what do you do with that?
Well, one of the things that I think is important for the public to know, when I was in the previous school division in Lynchburg, Virginia, I brought in Ted Dintersmith, who produced a movie called Most Likely to Succeed. And one of the points is the way we've been doing education, just the obsession about testing. Testing is an aspect of education, but it's not the main aspect that we need to be judging our young people on for the future. But one of the points he makes is if your kid's not smarter than a smartphone, they're not going to have the jobs in the future. We've got to be able to use technology to our advantage. We've got to give kids, these digital natives who already have a skill set around technology, about how to apply it to better their lives and to solve problems here locally in our community, in our country, and around the world. We've got to move our school-based lessons to a problem-solving model, and something called PBL, problem-based learning, is really one of the things that's taking off here in Fairfax County Public Schools. And we're talking about in our strategic plan, Ignite, a more balanced assessment. We're still going to have tests. We are. But that's not going to be the only thing that we use to really collect feedback on students about and to share with parents where your kids' strengths are, where their passions are. No one has asked me in a single interview since I left college about my test score in college or in high school.
I know.
I know it's shocking for people to believe, but it's
life
true.
Life is not a graded assignment. I say this all the time. Life is not a graded assignment. People want to know, what can you do?
That's
and
correct.
It becomes about ideas. And young people have to be lifelong learners, and so do adults. I mean, to your point about growth mindset,
right.
Teachers have to stay ahead of where their students are.
Right. And we've got the right framework. Portrait of a Graduate, talking about students as creative thinkers, collaborators, critical thinkers, resilient citizens, global and ethical citizens who are resilient, who can goal set. Those are the skill sets we have to be teaching in the classroom. Yes, there'll sometimes be a test or two along the way, but those are the skills that employers are looking for. You know, they just asked Virginia employers a list of 20 characteristics. The Chamber of Commerce did this just about 2 or 3 years ago. Only one subject area that we teach in traditional subjects was listed in that top 20, and it was math. Everything else was about skills and dispositions that employers wanted to see. Can you work with other people? Are you a problem solver? Can you come to work on time and be prompt? These are the things we've got to be working on teaching our kids as we're in the school system. And I think Portrait of a Graduate that the school board has already been working on, the strategic plan Ignite, I think we're really ready to accelerate that work here over the next few years in Fairfax County Public Schools.
And isn't this too a matter of getting students to better engage with the material? You know, again, vocabulary words and the rote things, and I learned the times table in the 5th grade.
Right.
But at this juncture, with critical problem solving skills, isn't it a matter of getting them to engage in the classroom with the material?
Yes, and the engagement is really a revolution in teaching. We really need to move from the sage on the stage, as the old phrase was. I'm the expert, I know everything. Look, smartphones know a lot more than sometimes you do as a teacher. We need our teachers to become guides on the side. We need our teachers to become coaches and facilitators of learning for kids, and then to help give kids that feedback when they do get frustrated when they're trying to solve a problem. So it really is a culture change that we're beginning to make, and we're just beginning. I'm glad, frankly, that we've got additional flexibility through the new Every Student Succeeds Act that replaced No Child Left Behind and its obsession just on testing.
Right.
Make no mistake, though, as part of our equity focus, we've got to keep a ground base of competence in literacy and numeracy that all kids have to have. But that's about the ground floor. To really get to the ceiling, to break the ceiling, we've got to have kids with 21st century skills. And that's what Portrait of a Graduate's going to do for Fairfax County Public School students.
So looking ahead into your crystal ball, and your commitment is what, 10, 20, 15
Oh, I don't know.
years,
I think it's a 4-year contract now. And
well, let's say you're going to stay for 10 years.
Let's say 10 years.
You know, the president of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation once said something in an interview, which to me was such a revolutionary concept. She said, we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 10. And if you think about it, that is so true. But we think 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. And then we look back and we're like, oh my goodness, look at what has happened in 10 years. So looking down the road, how are you going to try to position the school system to respond to these emerging things that we don't even know what they are yet?
Wow, that's a great question. Part of it, I think, is continuing to let folks know that I'm part of this family. This family, as I said, I was raised in this family.
Right.
And giving people a chance to know that the future is going to be okay. That's one of the things we told our new teachers today. Our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources had a message that I really liked, including my message about the cats and the growth mindset, that it's going to be okay. You're going to make some mistakes. We can't predict exactly the future,
You can't.
what it's exactly going to look like. But we need to give our kids confidence about learning and an eagerness to learn. And rote memorization, worksheets, just go read chapter 5 and into chapter 6 isn't going to be enough.
No.
And we're ready to lead that in Fairfax County Public Schools.
Well, your message has been very reassuring for me. Now, I don't have kids in the public school systems, but I understand the value of investing in our public school system for businesses, for people who live and own homes here, for people who want to see our county be a leader in Virginia's economy. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Brabrand.
I promise they'll get a good return on their investment.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us here tonight on Inside Scoop.